Hello YouTube, fellow math students and math teachers. DeVore here, and we are moving on to a different module today in the Mathematics Visions Project Math 1 curriculum. We are going to do the first task in Module 5 called Getting Ready for a Pool Party. This module is all about features of functions, so expect to have to deal with domain and range and being able to represent different sets of numbers in interval notation. Here's our problem. We have Sylvia, nice little change from Elvira. She has a small pool full of water that needs to be emptied and cleaned, then refilled for a pool party. During the process of getting the pool party ready, Sylvia did all the following activities, each during a different time interval. At some point, she removed water with a single bucket, filled the water with a hose, drained the water with a hose, cleaned the empty pool. Sylvia and her two friends removed water with 3 buckets, and at some point they also took a break. Now, obviously, these are not in the order that makes sense for us for this problem. Through the course of this task, we are going to be figuring out a order that makes sense and representing it in multiple forms. I actually prefer to start down here with creating the story, just because to me this makes sense. I prefer to start with words and then graph, as opposed to making the graph and then coming up with the story afterwards. So here is the order in which I would put this story that to me makes sense. First thing that would happen, I think that Sylvia removes the water with a single bucket and figures out that it's a bad idea. So then she calls up a couple of her friends who are over at her house, and they do the same thing with 3 buckets. And they figure out that they're making progress, but it still is not a good time. And then someone remembers, hey, we can drain water with a hose, which goes way faster, and they don't have to be carrying buckets and doing all that kind of stuff. All right. So after they finish draining the water, I like to think that they cleaned the pool. And then they still need to clean up the backyard. So I'm going to say that they filled the pool back up with the hose. Then after that, they took a break because they worked super hard, and I also like to think the backyard is now all nice and pretty and clean for the pool party, and they were able to do multiple things at once. All right. So here's my story, and the way that we might think about making this graph, and you don't have to do it the same way that I do, but to me this makes sense. Let's go ahead and add a couple. Actually never quite done this before. Whoa, okay, that did not work out how I expected it to. Hang on, sorry, my software is having an issue. This happens sometimes. There we go, that's how I want to make it bigger. Shift enter, not regular enter. Hit shift enter for that. Alright, so we are now going to make, here's our lovely graph, right here. And we're going to draw on it. I'm going to have a red mark up here be the max height of the pool. Alright, so if we're following my story that I made here, starts up here at the top, and she's removing water with a single bucket. So it's just kind of going, making very small progress. And then they are removing water with 2 buckets, so we've got bigger dips here. And they find out that sucks. They drain. So they drain it the rest of the way with the hose. They clean the pool. The pool's still empty. They fill it back up with the hose at about the same rate. About the same rate. If I could draw with the mouse, that'd be great. At about the same rate. And there it's about full again. And then they take a break. So this is one way that you can do this kind of a graph. Now, the reason why I did the stair steps was because I'm thinking about a pool, thinking about like you're in the bathtub or something, and you have a cup and you're taking water out. I'm thinking about my kids playing with cups in the water. You take out a cup of water, and it doesn't go down, the water level doesn't go down gradually, it just goes right down. And so that's what I'm thinking about here, that it goes down in small chunks for each bucket, but then in slightly bigger chunks when you have more buckets. And then it goes down at a more constant rate when it's just the hose doing it. This is just one example of a graph that you could do. It all depends on your story. So I'm going to segment part of this off here. So this is one part, another part. Sure they cleaned it, and then they took a break. So those are my sections, and you can figure out how you want to label it. Might be worth it to go into Paint and do that kind of thing. So this is my example of what this looks like, and yours will probably look different than mine, and that is totally fine. This is just my story. This is an order that made sense to me. The last thing that we need to figure out is this graph a function? Now, this is kind of the defining question of this module about how do we know that something is a function. One way that we can tell from a graph is doing what's called the vertical line test. You may have seen this in previous courses, where if I draw a vertical line anywhere on this graph, it should only cross my graph once. And if you look at it, that's true. Aside from my little mistakes here, I mean, that does happen. So this graph does represent a function. Yes, because it passes the vertical line test. The second part of this question is, would all graphs created for this situation represent a function? And if you were to compare this with your friends and have a few different combinations of stories, I think you would find that this is a function. But here's the reason why. The reason why is because by doing the vertical line test, we are saying that only one thing can happen at one time. In this case, we don't have two parallel universes going on here at the same time. We don't have this one dimension where they are using the hose here at the beginning, and then at the very same time there's like these phantom alternate dimension people who are using buckets at the exact same time on the exact same pool. That's where that mental disconnect happens. So all graphs would be a function because we can only do one thing at a time. And that's really the thing that we'll be exploring a lot during this module, is this idea of, can we be doing more than one thing at once? Can we be driving in our car and stop at the cafe at the same time having coffee? No. We are not the doctor. We can't do that. And that's that relating things back to our sense. It's mostly our sense of time that this comes down to, and we'll go through some of the questions that help us answer these kinds of questions when we don't have a graph. This one just is a nice graph, and it's fun to draw anyway. So that is the task, getting ready for a pool party. Once again, my name is DeVore. If you like these videos, please remember to like and subscribe. I always love hearing from you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to come in during my office hours. You can come in and talk to me. You can send me a message, an email, and I will help you. And hopefully we'll have a good time with it. So remember, be awesome, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day.